The first sign something was wrong. She ordered 2 glasses of wine before I even sat down. I slid into the booth across from her, still brushing the rain off my jacket. And there they were, 2 tall glasses of red, sweating under the soft yellow lights. She didn't smile when she saw me. She didn't even say hello. She just kept glancing at the entrance like she was expecting someone else. I tried to ask who the second glass was for, but she talked over me, loud enough that the couple in the next booth looked up. Then, as if it were nothing, she pushed 1 glass toward me and muttered, "Don't make this awkward, okay?" The wine was warm. She knew I hated warm wine. I hadn't even taken a sip when she leaned back and said it like she'd been holding it in for years. "You're not my type." The second glass of wine suddenly made sense. I stared at her, waiting for a smirk, a wink, something to tell me she was joking, but her eyes were already drifting back toward the door. My chest felt tight, but not from the words, from the silence that followed. I didn't ask who the second drink was really for. I didn't ask why she looked relieved when I pulled out my wallet. I just paid for both glasses, stood up, and walked out. That's when I heard it, her laugh. Soft, low, and meant for someone else. Whoever had just walked in. And that was only the beginning. I didn't even make it to the end of the block before I stopped under a street lamp, the rain soaking through my collar. My heart was hammering like I'd just run a mile, but my legs felt heavy. Every part of me wanted to keep walking and never look back. Yet my head kept replaying the sound of her laugh. It wasn't the fake one she used at work parties. This was real. Soft. The one she used to save just for me. Against every ounce of better judgment, I turned around. The copper lantern's big front window was fogged from the heat inside, but I could still see shapes through the glass. She was leaning forward now, shoulders relaxed, her hands wrapped around the second glass of wine. And across from her sat a man in a gray jacket. He wasn't a stranger. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I knew that jacket. He wore it to our house once for a barbecue last summer. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a habit of cracking his knuckles when he laughed. My mind scrambled for his name, but all I could think about was how close they were sitting. I should have left right then, but I didn't. I walked to the side alley and found the narrow service window that looked into the bar. From there, I could see everything. The way her hand brushed his as she passed him the menu. The way he leaned in and whispered something that made her bite her lip. And then, the thing that made my stomach turn, she reached into her purse, pulled out her phone, and slid it across the table to him. He looked at the screen, grinned, and nodded. It hit me like a punch. Whatever was on that phone wasn't meant for me to see. I left before they spotted me, but every step home felt heavier. I didn't know what was worse, the fact that she was meeting someone behind my back, or the fact that she didn't even try to hide it. I told myself I wouldn't dig deeper, that I'd just sleep it off. But the truth? I was already planning exactly how I was going to find out what was on that phone. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying every detail in my head. The way she smiled at him, the subtle touch of her hand on his, the phone sliding across the table. It was like a film loop I couldn't stop. By 3 a.m., I had convinced myself that if I didn't figure out what was on that phone, I'd lose my mind. And so, I made a plan. Clarissa has this habit of leaving her purse in the hallway when she comes home. She tosses it on the little bench, kicks off her shoes, and heads straight to the bedroom without looking back. The next evening, I waited. I sat in the living room, pretending to scroll through my laptop while my pulse thundered in my ears. When I heard the front door, I didn't even look up. She walked past, humming to herself, dropped the purse exactly where I expected, and went down the hall. The moment I heard the shower running, I moved. My hands were trembling as I unzipped her purse and fished out her phone. Of course, there was a passcode, but I'd seen her type it in enough times over the years to know it by heart. I told myself I was only going to check the messages from that day, nothing else. But once I was in, I couldn't stop. Her call log made my stomach knot. There were 5 calls yesterday to a number with no name, just digits. I checked her texts. Nothing. Not with him, not with anyone suspicious. That's when I noticed a new app on her home screen, one I'd never seen before. The icon was a simple black square with a gold letter in the center. I tapped it, but it needed a separate login. I didn't know her password. Before I could try to guess, I heard the shower shut off. Panic surged through me. I shoved the phone back in her purse, zipped it, and sank into the couch just as she walked into the room in her robe, drying her hair. She gave me a curious glance, but didn't say anything. I forced a smile and asked about her day. For the rest of the night, She acted like nothing was wrong, but I couldn't stop thinking about that black and gold app. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized something. If I wanted answers, I couldn't keep playing the quiet, patient husband. I was going to have to get messy. I spent the next 2 days pretending to be normal, which for me meant a lot of fake smiles and bad jokes that even I didn't laugh at. Clarissa seemed calmer than usual, almost cheerful, which only made me more suspicious. That black and gold app kept gnawing at me. Every time I pictured that man in the gray jacket sitting across from her, I imagined him looking at something on her phone that I wasn't supposed to see. I knew whatever it was had to be inside that app, and I knew she wasn't going to hand over her password just because I asked. On Thursday night, she told me she had a girls' dinner and would be home late. That was my window. The moment her car pulled out of the driveway, I grabbed her purse and her phone. My hands were clammy, but I wasn't going to waste time. I plugged the phone into my laptop, loaded up a password-cracking tool I'd downloaded that morning, and waited. The spinning wheel on my screen felt like it was mocking me, taking its sweet time. I kept glancing at the clock, imagining her walking in halfway through. After what felt like an hour but was really 12 minutes, the password appeared. 6 characters. Easy. I opened the app, expecting maybe some private messages or secret photos. What I found instead froze me in place. It wasn't a social app. It was a private listing platform, like a members-only marketplace. But this wasn't eBay or Craigslist. The profiles weren't selling furniture or electronics. They were selling experiences. Personal ones. Discreet ones. And there, right at the top of the recently active list, was a profile picture I knew all too well. It was Clarissa. Same deep blue dress she wore at the Copper Lantern. Only here, she wasn't just smiling. She was looking straight into the camera with the kind of expression I hadn't seen directed at me in years. The description below her photo made my stomach turn. She had written about herself like she was a stranger, listing preferences, times she was available, even a vague mention of someone special I'm meeting again soon. I sat back in my chair, the air feeling too thick to breathe. My mind spun with questions I didn't want answers to. Who else had seen this? How long had it been there? And more importantly, was the man in the gray jacket just one of many? I heard the crunch of tires outside and slammed the laptop shut, shoving her phone back into her purse just as the front door opened. She walked in carrying a takeout bag, smiling like nothing in the world was wrong. And all I could think was, if she's capable of hiding something like this, what else don't I know about the woman I married? I couldn't focus on anything for the next 24 hours. Work calls blurred into meaningless background noise. Emails piled up unanswered. And every time my phone buzzed, I half expected it to be her. Or worse, someone connected to that app. I kept picturing her profile, the suggestive description, the look in her eyes that told me this wasn't some impulsive stunt. She had been doing this for a while, comfortable enough to make it feel routine. The idea that strangers knew her in a way I didn't made me feel sick, but it also lit a fire under me. I needed to know exactly how deep this went. The app wasn't public, but now that I had her login, I realized I could do more than just read. I could interact. That night, when she fell asleep on the couch watching one of her cooking shows, I slipped the phone from her hand, opened the app, and scrolled through her recent activity. There were multiple conversations, all under vague usernames. Some of them were short and transactional, others were longer, flirtatious. But one thread stood out. The username was Cobalt42, and the tone between them was different. Familiar. Intimate. This was the man in the gray jacket. I was sure of it. The last message from him was sent 2 nights ago. Same place next week. She had replied with a simple, absolutely. And then she had sent him a location pin. I tapped it, and my chest tightened. It was a small boutique hotel on the far side of the city, the kind of place that prides itself on privacy for distinguished guests. The date on the message was for tomorrow night. I sat there staring at the glowing screen, my mind racing. This wasn't just some vague suspicion anymore. I had an exact time, an exact place. I could walk away now and let it all implode on its own, or I could show up and see with my own eyes what she was capable of. By morning, I had made my choice. I called in sick to work, but instead of resting, I spent the day planning. I found my old digital camera, the one I used back when I thought photography would be my hobby. I charged the battery, cleared the memory card, and packed it into my bag with a notepad and a pen. If I was going to confront her, I wasn't going in blind. The hardest part was acting normal. That evening, She breezed into the kitchen wearing that same deep blue dress from the profile photo, telling me she had another girls' night. She even kissed me on the cheek before heading out the door. I stood at the window, watching her car disappear down the street, and then grabbed my bag. Tomorrow night, she'd be at that hotel. And tomorrow night, I'd be there too. But what I didn't realize was that I wasn't the only one planning to show up. The next evening, I got to the hotel an hour early. It wasn't one of those big chain places with a flashy lobby. This one was tucked between two glass office buildings, easy to miss if you weren't looking for it. The front entrance was narrow, dimly lit, with a single brass door handle that looked polished every morning. Inside, the air was warm and faintly scented with something floral, almost like it was trying too hard to feel welcoming. I took a seat in one of the low leather chairs in the corner, the kind that makes you feel invisible if you slouch just right. From there, I could see the front desk and the elevator. I kept my bag on my lap, the camera already set up to snap photos without the flash. My plan was simple: get proof, get out. No confrontations, no drama. At least, that's what I told myself. The reality was my hands wouldn't stop tapping against the camera strap, and my chest felt like it was wrapped in steel bands. About 20 minutes in, I saw her. Clarissa walked through the front door, her hair styled perfectly, that deep blue dress fitting like it was made for her alone. She moved like she knew exactly where she was going. No hesitation, no scanning the room. I waited for the man in the gray jacket to follow, but he didn't. Instead, two other people walked in behind her. A tall man in a dark coat I didn't recognize, and a woman. Not just any woman, but someone who looked oddly familiar. It took me a few seconds to place her. She'd been at our barbecue last summer too, laughing with Clarissa by the grill while I ran inside to grab more drinks. They didn't go to the front desk. The tall man pulled something from his pocket, a card key, and they all headed straight for the elevator. Clarissa laughed at something the other woman said, touching her arm like they were old friends. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just her meeting one man in secret. This was something else entirely. I snapped a few photos as they stepped into the elevator, the doors sliding shut. My heart was pounding so loud, I barely noticed someone walk up behind me until they spoke. "You shouldn't be here." I turned to see a short, wiry man with sharp eyes and a hotel staff badge pinned to his vest. He didn't look angry, just certain, like he knew exactly why I was there. "If you're here for Clarissa," he said quietly, "you might want to think twice before following them." Before I could ask what he meant, he walked away, disappearing through a service door. And now I had a choice: walk out, go home, and pretend none of this happened, or take the elevator up and find out why a stranger in a hotel uniform just warned me about my own wife. I pressed the button. The elevator ride felt like it lasted an hour, even though it only stopped twice before reaching the top floor. My reflection in the mirrored walls looked pale and jumpy, my eyes darting from the glowing floor numbers to the hallway map posted above the buttons. When the doors opened, the carpeted hallway stretched out in both directions, lit by those low amber lights that make everything feel like midnight, even if it's not. I checked the photo on my camera, the one with Clarissa and the others stepping into the elevator, and memorized the room number the keycard had flashed against. 912. The hallway was silent except for the faint hum of the air system. I kept my steps slow, trying not to make the carpet squeak under my shoes. When I reached 912, I stood there, breathing as quietly as I could. I could hear muffled voices inside, but not enough to catch the words. There was laughter, then the scrape of a chair, and then nothing. Just silence. I leaned closer, pressing my ear to the door. That's when I noticed something strange: the smell. It wasn't perfume or food. It was something metallic, sharp, like the scent of coins or fresh-cut steel. It made my throat tighten. I was about to step back when the faintest sound cut through the stillness. A man's voice, low but commanding. Not playful, not romantic. It had an edge to it. My first thought was to knock, to act like I'd gotten the wrong room, just to see her face when she opened the door. But before I could decide, the door to the room across the hall creaked open. A man in a hoodie peered out, his eyes locking on me instantly. He didn't say anything, but the way he stared made my skin crawl. Without breaking eye contact, he pulled a phone from his pocket, typed something quickly, and disappeared back into his room. I turned back toward 912, my pulse racing. If I walked away now, maybe no one would notice. But I was already in too deep. I reached into my bag, pulled out the small camera, and crouched, angling it toward the narrow gap between the door and the frame. Through that thin slice of space, I caught flashes of movement. Clarissa's arm, the glint of a wine glass, the other woman's hair as she leaned forward. And then I saw the man in the dark coat step into view, holding something in his hand. It wasn't a drink. I froze. Whatever he was holding was metallic, with wires trailing from it. I snapped a photo, but the click of the shutter was louder than I expected. Inside, the conversation stopped dead. A chair scraped violently against the floor. I didn't wait. I moved fast, heading toward the elevator, but the hallway suddenly felt much longer than before. As I reached the corner, I heard the door to 912 open behind me. Footsteps. Heavy. Getting closer. When the elevator doors finally slid open, I stepped inside and hit the close button over and over. Just before they shut completely, I saw Clarissa in the hallway, staring straight at me. No smile. No shock. Just recognition. As if she had known all along I'd be there. The elevator reached the lobby, and I bolted through the brass doors into the cool night air, the city lights blurring in my peripheral vision. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely think straight. I didn't stop until I was halfway down the block, leaning against a lamppost, trying to make sense of the look Clarissa had given me. That look, it wasn't anger. It wasn't guilt. It was something else, almost like she was relieved I'd seen her. I decided I couldn't end the night running. I needed answers. I circled back to the hotel, this time slipping in through the side entrance. The staff didn't stop me. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my chest burning, and when I reached the 9th floor, the hallway was empty. Room 912's door was open. Inside, Clarissa was sitting at the small round table with the woman I'd recognized from the barbecue. The man in the dark coat stood beside them, his arms crossed. On the table lay the metallic object I'd seen earlier, now clearly a portable recording device with tangled wires. And then I saw it. A stack of photos, documents, and an open laptop displaying a spreadsheet full of names and dates. Clarissa looked up at me and, to my surprise, smiled. "Vernon, you're early." Before I could ask what she meant, the man in the coat stepped forward and introduced himself as Detective Marlowe. He explained that Clarissa had been working with him for months, helping to gather evidence for an investigation into a group running an illegal experience ring through that very app one had found on her phone. The profiles, the meetings, the secrecy, it was all part of an undercover operation. The woman at the table was his partner, also undercover. I stood there, struggling to process it all. "So, you weren't meeting someone behind my back?" Clarissa's smile softened. "I was. But not like you think. I couldn't tell you. It would have put you in danger if word got out. I'm sorry for how it looked." She reached for my hand, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't pull away. They showed me the evidence, explaining that tonight was supposed to be the final handoff before making several arrests. The man in the gray jacket? He was already in custody from an earlier meeting. Everything had been orchestrated to protect Clarissa's cover. Walking out of that hotel, I felt like I'd been holding my breath for months and finally exhaled. The weight in my chest was gone, replaced with something I hadn't felt in a long time: pride. My wife had risked herself to help bring down something dangerous, and even though she hadn't trusted me with the truth, I could see now it wasn't about trust. It was about keeping me safe. That night, back at home, she poured 2 glasses of wine. Real wine this time, chilled just the way I liked it. And we sat on the couch until morning, talking about everything. For the first time in years, it felt like we were on the same side again. And you know what? I realized she was wrong that night at the restaurant. I am her type. Always was.